lot of analysts, football analysts that I'm seeing on Twitter, they are mentioning the need for a CDM. Um, with So there are probably two, three different scenarios. One where Pogba stays, right? Uh, Obviously, I'm not calling him a CDM, but I'm thinking of a situation where Pogba stays, and then the possibility of us signing a CDM. And what does the partnership of McFred have? Like, what does it come to going into this next season? Um, Maybe the main question is, do you think this should be a priority position that we should go for? And if yes, which name comes to your mind? Like some a realistic option that would be that United should go and sign.
Yeah, I think uh, the defensive midfield position should have been United's priority ages ago. I mean, should have been a priority last summer, but um, United have never really bothered to build the squad in the right manner. As I said pretty early on, that they generally play square pegs and round holes and vice versa and stuff. So I think they knew from they knew as far back as the 2018-19 season that Matic was um, inconsistent, shall we say? I mean, he's had some good games this season, but it's almost like in the first half he is brilliant. In the second half, he's he's almost like a 40-year-old who's just walking about the pitch, giving away passes and getting dribble passed by teenagers and stuff. I mean, it just shows that uh, United should have seen that happen way before they did, and instead they ended up handing him an advantage a new contract till what next summer, and there's another player whose contract runs out next summer. But I think it's high time now that they focus on that position because we looked at that 6-1 defeat to Spurs when, um, which sort of, which sort of showed that um, Ole is now not going to take risk about playing a one man. I mean, he's not going to play a sole defensive midfielder in there, and he learned from that. And everything that happened from that defeat onwards was basically a snowballing of the stuff that happened in the early part of the season where United were constantly getting overrun midfield.
Right.
So just to protect the centre backs, who I think are not the best pair, they are pretty similar players in a way. Maguire and Lindelof. Maguire I think is better than Lindelof, but they've got similar traits. They need to be covered up by a defensive partner, which is why you see Lindelof playing well for Sweden. By the way, he's got a much older, much quicker centre back around him, much more physical centre back around him.
Hmm.
And I think it started from there. But if United have a defensive midfielder um, who is a pure defensive midfielder, I'm not talking about Fred or McTominay, which and it's no criticism for them. I think they are not defensive midfielders anyway. If they have a proper defensive midfielder, I think you'll see the centre backs getting more support, and because of that, you'll see someone like Aaron Wan-Bissaka marauding high up the pitch much more than he does. Because you see sometimes that it's Wan-Bissaka who's got to drop into who's got to drop in as a third centre back when United try to build from the back, especially when Matic is not playing or when Fred doesn't drop into the centre back role when United build from the back. So I think bringing in a defensive midfielder would improve the way United build from the back, making sure that um, they start with the back three. You look at the way United did at the end of, I mean, in the second half of 2019, 1920 season where Matic was having the best half season of his life. Uh, the role that he played, I think that's what the ideal United centre back needs to do. He needs to drop in as a centre back when United get exposed on the counter. He should make interceptions and a bit like Fernandinho, maybe he should make those cheeky fouls, get away with yellow cards, um, hustle and harry the opposition, make sure that you just protect the centre backs that you have, which essentially is the centre back's main role. But now you look at the way United sometimes struggle to um, break down back defenses. You see McTominay and Fred just resorting to sideways passes to fullbacks instead of trying to break down opposition packed defensive lines. Um, I mean, McTominay especially, he generally resorts to carrying the ball instead of passing the ball inside. He either carries the ball inside with the dribble or he passes sideways, which is a weakness of his. Which I think otherwise he's a pretty good player. I think Fred does that a bit more than McTominay does, but he does not do that in the right areas. He does that in just random areas where even let's say even Axel Tuanzebe can pass when he's not great on the ball anyway. So I think um, the defensive midfield is probably the most important position on the pitch these days. Not just these days; it's been the most important position over the previous decade. And United have constantly sort of delayed it for some reason. They knew Michael Carrick was moving on. He was on the verge of retiring. He clearly did his coaching badges, not as if he never told the club that he was not doing coaching badges. But United still refused to fix that area in the long term, resorted to playing Matic in there when he was clearly aging. Um, so I think it's probably high time they do that. And I think people say that Declan Rice is perfect for it. I think he is pretty good. He is perfect for it, but I think the funds may be limited at least this summer.
Right.
And if United go for a player next summer, a defensive midfielder next summer, I think Erling Haaland would probably be United's main target then. So it depends on, as you said before, depends on the Paul Pogba question. If he leaves, United will get some money to spend on a defensive midfielder, but I sort of expect, I mean, I want United to go for a cheaper defensive midfielder because I think there are cheaper players than Declan Rice there. I mean, they might not be as good or as expensive at Rice is,
Hmm.
but I somehow want United to go cheap in this position and just pick the most appropriate player. Like the analytics community, as you said, really likes Steven Koopmeiners, who plays for Alze Alkmaar. I'm a big fan of Boubacar Kamara at Marseille. I can even consider playing Ben White in defensive midfield because I think he's got that Declan Rice vibe about him, but he's not as expensive yet. He's better on the ball than Rice, and he's played defensive midfielder for Brighton a fair few times last season. And Graham Potter, they play a system which, again, relies on building from the back, centre back, with a back three, which Ole wants, which Matic actually used to do. So I think signing Ben White and using him in that um, Declan Rice role um, will not be a bad idea at all. And of course, it'll be sort of a massive ego boost for Ed Woodward as he heads out because, of course, Arsenal are after Ben White and Liverpool have liked him for quite a while. He's a former Leeds United player, so I think it will be a sort of a good CV boost for the man. I think it won't be a bad idea at all because I'm not expecting United to go out and sign Coop Miners or Kamara at this point. So I think if not Rice, I would like Ben White at the club.
Yeah, that's a really interesting shout, and I do always had this question like about Declan Rice. So if I look at him statistically, yeah, he looks amazing. Like I have not seen a lot of West Ham games. To be honest, I've not seen England games as much. But when I think about West Ham, they are not the side who are trying to build from the back,
Yeah,
right? They are more of a counter-attacking side, uh, and United are trying to go away from that, right? We have been making so many mistakes trying to build from the back, but that is the philosophy that Ole is trying to push. Like he's trying to get this in practice on the pitch as well, even if you're making mistakes. So keeping that in mind, that is one concern that I have about Declan Rice. Maybe you have seen more of him doing things where he's building from the back, and where his team is building from the back, and then he's also intercepting when there is a counter attack about to happen. Uh, what are your thoughts about that? Well, I know you mentioned Ben White is a better option, but since a lot of fans also want Declan Rice, do you think he'll be able to cope up with the expectations, say, Ole has?
I think he will take about a season or at least some months to adjust to a more high value possession um, side like United because even for England, I'm sometimes not entirely convinced when England have big possession of the ball. I'm not entirely convinced by Rice's ability to drop in a centre back. and then turn and then play those passes, because I think Rice's main weakness at this point is to make that turn um, as quickly as maybe someone like Calvin Phillips, or even someone like Coop Miners, or as I said, Kamara and even Ben White. I think that's his main weakness, and what United want to do is build quickly from there instead of wasting time too much time there. And I think Rice will sort of take a while to adjust to that, because, as you said, he's not fully adjusted to that, and we've seen that when players adapt or maybe change from playing in a deep defensive line to playing a higher defensive line, um, they will have an issue, at least initially. We saw that with Maguire. He
Mhm.
still sometimes um, has that mini error in him where he can't uh, recover well, but he does the job of going forward and doing all the stuff pretty much on his own sometimes, because the defensive midfield is dysfunctional anyway. So he's just got to take responsibility and just keep progressing the ball forward with his passing or ball carrying. Yeah, I think someone like Rice, is going to take a while to adjust to that. I would ideally want uh, a left footer, uh, because it's the closest we have to Matic, but considering that we're now moving towards that Sancho axis and improving Van Bissaka axis and that Kieran Trippier axis, I think it's important to have both those sorts of passing varieties in there essentially. So I think Rice does that, but as I said, he's got that main weakness in him, which he'll only learn over time.
Right. And as fans, I don't think we have that patience, to be
Yeah,
honest. A lot of
we've lost
like
all patience.
people that you'll see on Twitter, they won't understand that, hey, even if he has transitioned from one Premier
Yeah,
League club to another, they would want him to start delivering from day one, which is a bit unrealistic.